Welcome to NarrativeNook audio tales where enchanted stories come to life. If you enjoy our stories, please subscribe, like and share to support our channel. Enjoy listening.
Meanwhile, Willow had no phone, so she had to find ways to entertain herself. She was observing the flowers and plants in the meadow when the roar of motorcycles suddenly interrupted her. Startled, she stood up and looked over, only to see two motorcycles driving toward her from a small alley. The four men obviously looked like local troublemakers, and their eyes widened when they saw the girl on the meadow who looked like a princess. However, they didn't expect to find a large camper van in such a remote area and a beautiful Eastern girl sitting in the meadow outside. The four of them exchanged glances, and immediately, malicious thoughts arose in their minds. They assumed that such camper vans were typically used by couples visiting the area, giving them the perfect opportunity to have fun with a beautiful woman and make off with their belongings. Nonetheless, Willow sensed the ill intentions of these men's gazes, so she immediately walked toward the camper van. In the meantime, Jasper had also noticed the intruders and advised, "Go inside." After hearing this, she immediately expressed her concern, "Can you handle them alone?" "Yes," he replied confidently, positioning himself at the doorway of the camper van to prevent anyone from approaching. On the other hand, the local troublemakers were discussing amongst themselves while sizing up Jasper. They knew Jasper wouldn't be easy to deal with, so they reasoned that they outnumbered him 3-1, which gave them instant confidence. After that, they got off of their motorcycles and stared menacingly at Jasper while picking up several huge wooden sticks from the ground. In response, she quickly searched the vehicle for a weapon Jasper could use to defend himself. Eventually, she located a bottle of pepper spray, which she held tightly in her hand, ready to use if those individuals approached her. As the troublemakers continued speaking in their dialect, they brandished their wooden sticks, trying to intimidate Jasper. Nevertheless, Jasper, with his arms crossed, showed no signs of being intimidated. However, the troublemakers mistakenly believed he was scared and expected him to beg for mercy or offer them money to leave. After waiting and seeing no sign of surrender from Jasper, they decided to attack. Soon after, two of the more powerful among them took the lead and approached Jasper while the other two jumped into the camper van to catch Willow. They planned to deal with the man first, then seize the valuables in the vehicle, as well as this luxurious camper van, which they wanted to claim and sell for cash. The two men swung their wooden sticks toward Jasper. They coordinated their attack, with one aiming for his head and the other for his chest. However, just as they were about to hit Jasper with their sticks, they felt a powerful force grab hold of them, and before they knew it, their weapons were snatched away, and one received a powerful kick to the chest while the other was punched in the head. In the meantime, Jasper's movements were fluid and effortless without any unnecessary flair, yet they possessed a devastating force that left the two men shrieking in pain as they fell to the ground. The other two accomplices standing nearby were still in shock and hadn't reacted when the sticks came crashing down on their heads, inflicting severe injuries. They immediately clutched their heads in pain as blood flowed from their wounds and howled like wounded animals. On the other hand, as Willow watched the unfolding drama from inside the camper van, she realized she didn't need the pepper spray after all. The thugs were also caught off guard, and they couldn't even defeat a single person because they had all collapsed to the ground before any real confrontation occurred. "Let's go." They hurried away after saying this, but not before making a threatening gesture, indicating that they would bring more people over. As soon as the thugs departed, Jasper clutched his chest and leaned against the car window to catch his breath, as his wound had not yet fully healed. Willow quickly opened the door and stepped out of the car, reaching out to support him. "Jasper, what happened to you? Get in the car. We need to leave this place," he said while looking at her. Nonetheless, she wanted to gather their belongings from the tent, but he stopped her. "Don't worry about those anymore. We're leaving now." Willow got into the passenger seat and Jasper immediately started the car, driving out of the forest. Those people just now were locals. If they didn't leave here quickly, they would likely be surrounded by those people. Sure enough, the four thugs returned to the village and immediately gathered a group of people for revenge. However, when they arrived, the car had already left. Even so, they still gathered more people and started to chase after them. Fortunately, Jasper acted quickly, and those people couldn't catch up with them in the end. As Jasper's car drove on a road 20 kilometers away, his phone rang. He glanced at it and swiped the phone to answer, "Hello. Where is my daughter?" A stern male voice came from the other end. "Mr. Presgrave, please wait a moment," Jasper said and handed the phone to Willow, who was in the passenger seat. "It's your dad." Willow smiled and took the phone. "Hello, Dad. Are you okay? Did you get scared? I will come and pick you up right away." Elliot's worried voice came through. "Dad, I'm fine. I'm doing well." "Good. In another half an hour, you'll see me." Elliot then continued, passed the phone back to him. Willow handed the phone back to Jasper. By then, Jasper had already parked the car on the side of the road as he answered, "Hello, Mr. Presgrave. Mr. Wyatt, my subordinate will send you the address. Please bring my daughter here now." "Okay," Jasper responded. "Thank you." "You're welcome." After hanging up the phone, Jasper turned to the girl next to him before breathing a sigh of relief. As long as she returned to her family, she would be safe. They wouldn't have to flee for their lives anymore. For a while, the atmosphere inside the car became somewhat heavy. An unexpected separation moment had begun. Willow thought that it would take several days for her father to come and pick her up. She didn't expect that her time with Jasper would be limited to just this journey until she reached her father. With their respective identities, it would be almost impossible for them to meet again in the future. It was like they would never have a chance to meet again in this lifetime. Willow bit her lip and asked, "Jasper, can you give me a way to contact you? Maybe in the future, I can't," the man coldly and decisively refused. Willow's pretty face blushed. As a member of the Presgrave family, she never needed to ask others for their contact information. Today was the first time she had spoken up, and she didn't expect to be rejected so bluntly. It really struck her self-esteem hard. "So, you're saying that once you bring me to my dad, we'll never see each other again?" Willow boldly confronted the issue. She thought that after spending a few days with this man, he would at least want to be friends with her, right? "That's right," the man replied. As the sound of a text message came through on his phone, he reached for the phone and took a glance at the address. Then, he searched for it on the car's navigation system, quickly pinpointing a specific location. Willow's breath involuntarily hitched. Although it seemed like she was lowering her self-value by doing this, she really hoped to keep in touch with him. She didn't want to go through her whole life without seeing him again. This desire was somewhat intense, so intense that no one else had ever provoked such thoughts in her. After all, in these past few days, he had risked his life to protect her while heavily injured. Furthermore, he had even been considerate enough to swat away mosquitoes for her while she was sleeping. Besides her father and brother, he was the first person to do such things. "Then, at least give me an address where I can find you in the future." Willow compromised. In any case, as long as they didn't lose contact, it would be fine. At least, she would know that he was safe after each mission. Jasper smoothly started the car and elegantly turned the steering wheel while speaking in a casual tone, "Miss Presgrave, don't like me and don't fall in love with me. It won't lead to anything." Willow was already blushing, but now her face turned even redder. Her pride couldn't handle it. She bit her lip and said, I didn't say I like you. It's best if you don't." Jasper kept his gaze forward, his deep eyes revealing no emotions. However, Willow could tell that what he said was what he truly felt. In other words, she had misunderstood things. Willow felt her chest rise and fall with anger. She never expected that the strongest feeling of defeat in her life would come from this man. It made her start to doubt herself. Was she really that unlikable? Thinking about it, she realized that she had caused him quite a bit of trouble, which could be why he didn't like her. He only protected her because of the pressure exerted by her father. Otherwise, he had no reason to protect someone of no value. Willow pouted and looked out of the window. At that moment, the man turned his head to look at her for a few seconds, without her notice. The glass reflected her expression, resembling that of a sulking child. The man's gaze narrowed slightly, then he looked at the navigation map, which showed that they were only 35 minutes away from their destination. "Let's play a song to listen to." "It's so dull," Willow said, feeling embarrassed and bored. Jasper played a song, and the atmosphere improved slightly. Willow's eyes were trained on the scenery outside the window moving backward, but her mind was filled with memories of the series of events she had experienced with Jasper. As she thought about it, she realized that a strong sense of reluctance grew within her. But she had to suppress it and not show it, otherwise, it would only make her feel more embarrassed. He didn't value her feelings, and if she voiced them, it would only be a joke. The journey went smoothly without them even encountering a single traffic light. Jasper's driving speed wasn't fast, nor was it slow. Willow glanced at the time on the navigation, and there were only 20 minutes left. For the first time, she wished the road was longer. "Jasper, will you remember me in the future?" Willow took the opportunity to ask him. "I have a lot of work to handle every day, so might not remember anyone," the man replied. "Then let me give you my phone number. If you're not busy or have free time, you can call me. We can chat or something. What do you think?" Willow's big eyes were filled with anticipation. "This should be enough, right? I don't have time nor leisure to chat." The man cut off the conversation directly. Willow glared at him, crossed her arms, and turned her face away. "Fine. No contact then. I don't care." It was clearly a statement declared in anger. Jasper's car got closer and closer to the destination. Finally, on a road, they saw the Presgrave family's convoy. There were at least 6 bodyguard cars. Jasper's car was recognized, and a bodyguard gestured for him to drive into the parking lot of a nearby building. The car came to a stop, and a bodyguard came over and opened the door, welcoming Willow. "Miss Presgrave, please step out." Willow sat in the car and looked at the man opposite her, then shifted her body and got out of the car. Willow. A tall and dignified figure quickly emerged from the nearby car. Willow saw her father's majestic figure and rushed toward him. "Dad." Jasper, seeing this, also pushed open the door and greeted Elliot. "Mr. Presgrave, I have safely delivered Miss Presgrave. I should be going now." "Wait," Willow called out, stopping him. "Jasper, aren't you injured? Why don't you come with us?" Jasper shook his head. "No need, it's just a minor injury." After saying that, Jasper turned around and left. Willow called out to him in concern, "Hey." Elliot, being perceptive, immediately directed his deep gaze toward the young man who had gotten into the car. At the same time, he reached out and held his daughter's shoulder, saying, "Willow, Mr. Wyatt still has work to do. Don't bother him anymore." "But, Dad." Willow felt a little anxious because she knew that Jasper's injury still hadn't fully healed. Surprisingly, Jasper drove off without a single moment of hesitation or pause. The car soon disappeared around the corner. Elliot could see the tears and reluctance shimmering in Willow's eyes. He sighed. How could he let his precious daughter fall in love with a member of the Special Forces? His job was so dangerous. Thus, he admired Jasper's actions, for Jasper did not leave Willow with a single shred of hope. The RV driving on the road suddenly swerved into a tiny alley. Then, it stopped and stayed there. A man's handsome face was reflected in the rearview mirror as he gazed into the mirror with a deep and mysterious gaze that kept his thoughts hidden. He stared at the main road behind him. 6 black SUVs sped past the junction as a thoughtful look shone in his eyes. Just then, his phone rang. He glanced down at it before answering the call. "Hey. You've handed her over to the Presgraves men, right?" It was his uncle, who was also his superior. "Yes," he replied. "Was Miss Presgrave hurt?" Ads by Pub Future. "Not at all. She was completely fine." "That's good. Next time you see Miss Presgrave, avoid her. Don't attract her attention at all. Do you hear me?" "Why? Why? Don't you know how strong and powerful her family is? Anyway, in the future, whenever you see her, just stay away from her," his worrying uncle instructed. "Got it," Jasper responded, closing his eyes as his head began to pound. "Come back now. You've made a mess of the mission, so you'll have to make up for it in the future." "Roger." Jasper then started the car once more. Currently, on the way to the airport were the Presgraves' troop of cars along with 3 helicopters escorting them while scouting the area around the group. Security was very strict. However, the woman sitting in the car in the center of everything was clearly not happy. Usually, Willow would be eager to tell her father everything about the eventful adventure she just had. Sitting next to her, Elliot waited and waited for her to offer up all the details of her experience, but she did not do so. Instead, she merely stared out of the window, lost in her thoughts. "Were you scared, Willie?" Elliot asked, concerned. He had heard that Jasper's safe house was broken into. She must have been there during the attack, so did that mean she witnessed all the blood that was spilled? Was she in shock? No, she shook her head before turning to look at him and reaching out for him with one hand. "Dad, can you tell me what Jasper's job is?" "He's an agent of an international organization." He did not hold any information back from her at all. Hearing that her guess was nearly correct, she pouted. Why did he choose such a dangerous line of work? "You sound like you care about him a lot." He tapped her on the tip of her nose. "I'll hire more bodyguards for you in the future. This won't happen again." "Oh, okay," Willow responded with a nod, but it was clear that she was still distracted. Deep down, he sighed. After seeing Jasper in person, he knew just how outstanding Jasper was, be it his looks, body, or talents. Willow was only 23 years old. It was quite understandable for her to be infatuated with a heroic man. However, a man with a job like Jasper's was not the ideal candidate in his mind for a son-in-law. That was because there was too much risk involved. Hence, no matter what, he did not want his daughter to start dating so soon. He wanted her to wait until she was more mature and would choose someone more ideal to share the rest of her life with. "Let's go home. Your mom is waiting for you," he exclaimed, patting her on the hand. She tiredly leaned against the car window. As she closed her eyes, she was surprised to find them wet. Everything seemed like a dream. Jasper seemed to only appear in her dreams. That was because she could no longer find him in real life. If he was the son of some other powerful family or even just a normal salaryman with a stable life, she might stand a chance to meet him once more. However, he was part of an international task force. He could disappear at any moment. Today, he might be in the country, tomorrow, he might already be in the next country over or somewhere even further. A coincidental meeting could never happen between them. That meant her chances of meeting him once more while they were still alive were practically zero. As Elliot led Willow into their home, she was instantly wrapped in a hug by Anastasia, who had promptly dashed over across the living room. Anastasia had been terrified, and there was not a calm moment in her life ever since the instant she heard Willow had gone missing. Now that Willow was finally standing before her, whole and healthy, she finally stopped worrying. "I'm fine, Mom. I'm all right." Willow hugged Anastasia back, feeling guilty about her reckless actions that led to giving her parents a scare. "Jared and Ellen even called to ask after you. Remember to call them back later so that they'll stop worrying," Anastasia said. All these years, they had kept Willow well protected out of fear of what might happen to her. Willow hummed in assent before cheerfully skipping further into the living room. Elliot wrapped an arm around Anastasia and kissed her on the top of her head. "All right now. She's finally home safe and sound. You don't have to worry anymore." "That's true. Oh, I nearly had to be hospitalized because of my heart," she exclaimed, looking up at him. Distressed by that piece of news, he reassuringly said, "As long as I live, our family will be fine." Anastasia snuggled into his embrace. "Okay." Willow returned to her room and called Jared to tell him she was safe. "Tell me. What exactly happened?" Jared worriedly asked. "My savior's name is Jasper Wyatt. He works for an international organization. I encountered some trouble during the dinner and accidentally interrupted his mission, causing him to lose his target. Because of that, his enemies tried to kill him. While protecting me, he was shot in the chest. His mission target then decided to target me. I was intercepted during the journey." At that thought, she could not resist continuing, "Did you know, Jared? Those criminals were so very smart. They could actually hack into self-driving cars and make them crash into us. It felt so much like a scene from the movies." Jared chuckled. "It sounds like you were not scared at all." "I'm not lying," she protested. She could not help but think that she was like an unlucky female lead character waiting to be saved by the male lead, Jasper. "Okay. Well, stay away from dangerous people in the future," Jared reminded. They were all very worried for her. "I know, Jared. How is Ellen? When will my little nephew be born?" "Soon. Probably in a few days. Mom and Dad are all packed up and ready to come back. I'll have to head back as well then. I have to be there for the birth of my nephew. I'm going to prepare a great present for him," she happily said. 3 days later, the Presgraves flew back in their private jet to welcome the birth of the third generation in their family. The day after their flight, Willow was recovering from jet lag when she suddenly felt breathless in the middle of her sleep. It felt like something was weighing down on her chest, pressing down on it. Of course, it was not a ghost or anything supernatural. She was merely having a nightmare. In her dream, she cried out in a plea for help, "Help me, Jasper." The moment she called out the name, she felt a powerful energy wrap around her, saving her. Jasper had appeared in her dream. He reached out to pull her over. Surprised yet overjoyed, she reached back and allowed him to pull her closer. She then felt strong arms wrapping her in a warm and grounding embrace. All her fear vanished into thin air. It was then that she opened her eyes. Wide awake, she looked around to find that she was only wrapped in a blanket. Jasper was nowhere to be seen. It had all been a dream. Still, the dream she had that afternoon felt so very real that she thought it had actually happened. It felt like he had been in the room with her. Her heart sank with disappointment. Snuggled in her blanket, she closed her eyes as if she was trying to force her way back to that dream. In the days since her rescue, this was the first time she had dreamed of him. However, no matter how hard and long she closed her eyes, she just could not fall back asleep. The only thing she felt was a sense of helplessness as the strength seeped away from her body. She slowly found her mind turning drowsy. Ellen safely gave birth to an adorable baby weighing 15 pounds in the hospital on the third day. Willow melted at the sight of her nephew when she visited them at the hospital. While Jared and Anastasia went to take care of Willow's sister-in-law, she followed the nurse to watch the baby get bathed and dressed. Ethan and Josephine had also concluded their cruise trip and arrived at a charming, romantic town for their vacation. Their love for each other remained as strong as when they first met. Even though they had lost that particular memory, Josephine couldn't resist her attraction to Ethan. They stayed at a hotel by the sea and enjoyed a carefree and liberating time together. From indulging themselves late at night to embracing each other first thing in the morning, bike rides, and boating, they spent a beautiful time together, loving each other without constraints. Today, they decided to ride to an estate that was the birthplace of wine. Ethan's family had investments there, and the place also had a horse stable. Ethan wanted to let Josephine have fun there for the day. While Ethan drove the car, Josephine sat in the passenger seat and took photos. There was a scent of freedom and recklessness in the air. 3 bodyguard cars followed closely behind them. Since Ethan's incident, the Quarles started spending more money on strengthening security. The owner of the vineyard warmly welcomed their arrival. After tasting the wine, Ethan and Josephine went horseback riding together. It was Josephine's first time riding, and Ethan stayed by her side, willingly becoming her loyal companion in this equestrian adventure. They stayed at the vineyard tonight. Under the starry night sky, they held hands and embraced each other as they lay on the fragrant grass, whispering words of love. After this trip, they would return to the Quarles' residence, as the preparations for the wedding would be underway. A month later, they received an invitation to the Presgraves to celebrate their newborn's first month back in the country. Since Josephine was also homesick, Ethan took her back first. The Quarles would later hold the wedding both in the country and abroad. In a mysterious conference room, a projector displayed the image of a Glimmerdalian tycoon, entangled in an underground organization's black market arms deal. He had become the target of an international espionage agency. He will go to Zorovia next. That's where he will meet the seller. We must capture this person in Zorovia and expose the seller to completely cut off this illegal trade route and prevent such incidents from happening again, a man of Eastern appearance with a serious expression stated. To avoid alerting him, we will send an Asian team. Except for Jasper, who's better off not participating since he is still recovering from an injury. I'll go. A low and firm voice sounded from under the dim light. No, your wound hasn't fully healed. It festered last time because you didn't treat it promptly. Focus on recuperating now. Don't involve yourself in this case. Exactly. Boss, please leave this case to us. We promise to successfully complete it. Someone in the shadows threw down a resolute statement. This is a case I've been involved in. I must participate. Jasper. The middle-aged man speaking sounded quite annoyed. Since his nephew joined the agency, there hadn't been a single time he obediently followed orders. As Jasper's superior, this was embarrassing for him. Boss, is there a reason you must go? A curious voice asked. No. It's just work, the man replied before getting up and leaving. Has anyone noticed that something's off with Boss this time after he came back? I did. You know what? I caught him daydreaming yesterday. Can you believe it? Our boss? Daydreaming? What if he was thinking about work? Impossible. That look in his eyes didn't seem like he was thinking about work, it was more like he was thinking about a woman. No way. Does our boss have a crush on someone? Ahem. A light cough from the head of the table interrupted the conversation. As the lights turned on, a group of young and motivated men and women were revealed in the conference room. At that moment, a gaze with a hint of admiration looked in the direction of the entrance. Back in the country. Willow had a visitor today, it was her senior who had come to see her. Willow insisted that she join her for her nephew's 1-month birthday celebration before she left. Willow, I feel so blessed. You've taken care of everything throughout my stay here, her senior exclaimed while standing by the floor-to-ceiling windows in the presidential suite. "No need to worry about details like that with me, May. You took great care of me as well when I first started in this line of work." "Now it's my turn to be the gracious host," Willow replied. She had discussed it with her father, and she could stay at the hotel to spend a few days with her friend before the baby's banquet, which was still a week away. "May, there's a fantastic Ceylonese restaurant downstairs. Let me take you there for some delicious food." "Okay, let's go." May Yang agreed. She was a local, but she was curious about everything in her home country as she had grown up abroad. Willow and May then arrived at the restaurant. When they were happily discussing something interesting, Willow's gaze suddenly wandered to a private room from which several people emerged one after another. The first group consisted of a middle-aged man flanked by two tall and elegant women. Being completely oblivious to the other customers of the restaurant, they were unconcerned even when they drew the attention of everyone in the place. Willow was also one of those people who furrowed her brows. Just as she was about to avert her gaze and pay no mind to the man, she unexpectedly caught sight of a couple walking out hand in hand from behind. The spoon in Willow's hand slipped, falling right into her coffee cup and splashing a few drops of scalding liquid. And yet, she didn't even react. Her eyes widened as she stared at the couple who had just emerged, her gaze fixating on the man. She knew the man. It was Jasper. She had bumped into the man she thought she would never see again in her life just half a month later at a hotel in her home country. The only difference today was that he was holding hands with a striking woman as they walked toward the restaurant's exit like a couple. "Willow?" May looked at Willow in confusion as she attempted to wipe the spilled coffee off her hand with a tissue. "What are you looking at?" Without waiting for May to wipe the coffee away, Willow suddenly stood up in a hurry. "May, I need to step out for a moment. Wait for me here." As soon as she said that, she rushed toward the entrance of the building without her purse. She noticed that the elevator doors were about to close after glancing around. "Wait," she shouted. Someone kindly pressed the elevator button for her, and the doors opened again. It was then that the man standing in the corner was revealed. At that moment, he was smoothing out the hair of his companion beside him. However, when his gaze fell upon the woman rushing toward them, his hand came to an abrupt stop. Even his face froze as a hint of confusion flickered in his eyes. Willow managed to squeeze herself into the elevator cabin. She chose to stand in a direction opposite Jasper and leaned against the wall so that she could look directly at him. Jasper glanced at her briefly before he looked at the woman beside him. His companion also stole a glance at Willow. She keenly noticed that the beautiful woman had been fixated on the man by her side. It was not the look of someone who has spotted an attractive guy. Instead, it resembled the expression one would have when they saw someone they had feelings for. It was a mixture of surprise, disappointment, and a ton of other emotions. "Who is she? Why did she come after us?" "Excuse us," one of the beautiful women whom the other man was hugging called out in a melodious voice when they reached a certain floor. Willow stepped aside upon hearing that. However, after the three individuals left, Jasper grabbed his companion's hand and exited as well, leaving Willow feeling flustered and at a loss as she stood in the elevator by herself. "It really is him," Willow murmured to herself. She had initially thought she was seeing things, but the man was undoubtedly Jasper Wyatt. He has a beautiful woman with him, and they are staying at this hotel. They must be sharing a room. Willow couldn't believe the absurdity of the situation as they met again. "It seems that he has a girlfriend. Shit. Why didn't he tell me?" Willow sighed. Despite feeling moisture in her eyes, she held back her tears and pressed the button to return to the floor of the buffet restaurant. At the same time, Amy Hawkins, who had just entered a luxurious presidential suite, turned around to face the man beside her. "Jasper, do you know the lady who got into the elevator earlier?" I don't, Jasper immediately replied while he moved toward the couch and picked up his phone to start working. Amy was still somewhat skeptical when she sat across from him and continued, "But I feel like she knows you." "She got the wrong guy, then," he answered, without looking up. "Is that so?" "She's very beautiful. She feels like a refined lady from a rich family." "She is not Miss Presgrave, whom you saved the other time, is she?" Amy managed to become a member of the special force because of her sharp instincts. He remained silent, but she still wanted to get the most accurate answer. In the end, she smiled and commented, "I'm sure I can find out her identity if I look into the hotel's guest list." "That's enough. This is our mission. It has nothing to do with any unrelated person. Regardless of who she is, it's none of my concern," Jasper warned sternly, lifting his head. His reaction only hurt Amy even more. "So, she is the lady from the Presgrave family. What a coincidence for us to meet her on our very first day here." Now that Amy had seen for herself how beautiful Willow was, she finally understood why Jasper couldn't forget Willow even after the mission had ended. Any man would be captivated by such a delicate and charming beauty. "I should be the one telling you that, Jasper. We're here for work. Even if you come across Miss Presgrave, you mustn't jeopardize our plan or have any private contact with her," Amy reminded him. "Because I'll get jealous if you do." Even though she hadn't won Jasper's affection, Amy hoped that he wouldn't let any other woman have his heart either. She understood the man well. Once he fell for someone, that person would become someone he would never forget. When Willow returned to the restaurant, May noticed the immediate change in her. Willow, who was as bubbly as could be just moments ago, now appeared to be a sorrowful maiden. "What happened, Willow?" May asked with concern. Willow shook her head. "Nothing. I just saw someone I know." "Is it someone you like?" May couldn't help but ask upon hearing that. Willow had never told anyone that she had feelings for Jasper, but now, in response to May's question, she found herself nodding involuntarily. "Yes. He saved my life. It's okay. It's considered fate as long as you two have crossed paths. You will meet again," May comforted her. Willow smiled at May. "Thank you for consoling me. I feel much better now." She thought to herself that Jasper must not be here for her. He was probably on a mission. And as a special agent, he could assume any role while carrying out his tasks. Was that woman from earlier his partner? Were they pretending to be a couple? Willow felt a sense of relief at the thought. She truly hoped she could encounter him once more in the hotel and have a conversation with him. At the very least, it was good enough if she could know he had recovered from his injuries. After returning to her room, Willow found herself zoning out while replaying the scene where she and Jasper met earlier. She was overjoyed to see him, but she also knew she couldn't disturb him while he was on a mission. This conflicting desire to see him yet not daring to do so was truly tormenting her. Thus, Willow decided to book a room next to Jasper's. She proceeded to call the front desk, but they wouldn't disclose Jasper's room number. However, that didn't pose a problem for Willow. The reason for that was that this was a hotel owned by the Manson Group, which also meant that this was the hotel that belonged to her uncle, Nigel. As such, she called his number directly. After a series of requests, Willow managed to find out which room Jasper was staying in. Even though he had booked the room under a different name, the surveillance footage revealed his hotel room. Nigel couldn't resist his niece's pleading, so he made an exception this one time and agreed to her request. After all, he knew her niece wouldn't do anything reckless. That was how Willow ended up booking the room next to Jasper's. As she carried her belongings downstairs, she deliberately glanced at the door beside her as she wondered if he was on the other side of the door. A faint smile crept onto Willow's lips at the thought. Now that she was only a door away from him, there was nothing else she could ask for. Little did Willow know that Jasper had already set up several hidden cameras in the corridor. At this moment, he was monitoring the movements in the corridor and naturally caught sight of her entering the room next to his. He also noticed Willow's slightly smug expression, which clearly indicated that she had come for him. Jasper's eyes narrowed for a few seconds, seemingly with a hint of resignation. "Did you catch anything in the corridor?" Amy walked over and asked. "No," he replied. Dressed in a tight-fitting black outfit, Amy couldn't help but sit down beside him. "Jasper, we have plenty of time. Let's enjoy life together." As she spoke, her hand naturally moved to rest on his shoulder in an enticing manner. Jasper's gaze turned extremely cold as he glanced at her hand. However, his tone was even more chilling when he growled, "Move." Amy, feeling a bit annoyed, sat back opposite him. "What am I lacking, Jasper? That little lady has captured your attention today, but I don't think I'm any worse than her. Pray tell, do you prefer younger women?" Jasper was 27, and so was Amy. She exuded the mature charm that a woman her age should possess, and she thought that Jasper would be attracted to that. "It's work hours. We shouldn't discuss personal matters," Jasper replied with his eyebrows pulled together into a frown. "Stop pretending. If it's about not discussing personal matters, why were you hesitant to be intimate with me in front of Miss Presgrave just now? You were clearly not in work mode." Amy saw right through him. Jasper remained silent upon hearing that. Just then, he caught sight of Willow leaving in the surveillance video. She had changed into a beautiful outfit and was heading toward the leisure area on the same floor. Although there was a cafe there, their target was also present, a dangerous arms dealer who had a fondness for women and enjoyed harassing any female who caught his eye. And yet, Willow was now approaching that place. Given how beautiful she was, it could spell trouble if the arms dealer took notice of her. Jasper closed the surveillance video and turned to Amy. "I need to go out for a while. I'll come with." "That's not necessary," he replied and closed his laptop before getting up and stepping out the door. Willow found it boring to stay alone in her room. Besides, she longed for a chance encounter with Jasper here. If she stayed in her room, she knew she would surely miss the opportunity. Each floor of the hotel had a leisure area where one could enjoy coffee and the scenery. She decided to try her luck there. What if Jasper is there? She thought excitedly. Little did she know that Jasper wasn't there, but the man had her every move under surveillance. If Willow were to discover that she was being monitored by Jasper, she would surely feel embarrassed. After all, who would want to live under someone else's watchful eye, especially when it was the gaze of a man she felt drawn to? What if she made a fool of herself only to have him witness it all? As Willow entered the cafe, she scanned her surroundings with a tinge of disappointment. It seemed that Jasper wasn't there. However, since she had come this far, she decided to order a cup of coffee and find a seat on her own. Meanwhile, the arms dealer, Bucky Wells, was having coffee with his two henchmen when he noticed the gorgeous beauty sitting at the opposite table. She was unbelievably stunning, with her long hair cascading down. As a gentle breeze from outside lifted her silky strands, it revealed a face that exuded both melancholy and icy allure. Her complexion was flawless and as delicate as a petal. And there she was, exuding an immaculate aura and an inherent elegance that captivated even Bucky, momentarily rendering him spellbound. His two subordinates turned around to glance at Willow. When they saw through their boss thoughts, they asked, "Mr. Wells, do you like that chick?" "Yeah. She's exactly my type," he replied, his eyes looking like that of a hunter's. "Mr. Wells, as long as you like her, I guarantee she'll be your prey tonight." "Good. I want her tonight." Bucky was a wealthy businessman. With his money, he could make his subordinates do anything for him. Since the boss had chosen his target, the two henchmen were determined to deliver the boss prey to his room. And so, someone secretly snapped pictures of Willow with their phone. After taking a few front-facing shots, they exchanged a knowing glance. They were determined to get her at any cost tonight. At that very moment, Jasper appeared at the entrance of the restaurant. Dressed impeccably in a tailored suit, he possessed a good physique, slim when clothed but fit when naked. Willow was lost in her thoughts when she suddenly heard a familiar male voice ordering. Surprised, she turned her head and her heart promptly skipped a beat. Heavens! She had actually bumped into Jasper, who had also arrived. Willow quickly composed herself, hoping to create a fortuitous encounter. However, just as she was about to wave Jasper over to join her, she realized that he had completely ignored her. Instead, he elegantly sipped his coffee and paid her no attention. The contrast between Willow's expectations and reality hit her hard. Did he really not see me, or is he choosing not to see me? At that moment, Willow's phone chimed as she had received a message. Even though she was not in the mood to check the message, she still glanced at it and saw the words, "I can't meet you right now." A glimmer of joy sparkled in Willow's beautiful eyes as she looked across at the man opposite her, holding the very phone that he had sent her the message with. "How did you get my phone number?" Willow asked him. "I have my ways," the man wrote back. She paused for a moment, almost forgetting that Jasper was an international secret agent with the ability to disable an entire surveillance system. "So, are you working right now? Is that woman who was with you earlier your colleague or your girlfriend?" Willow started chatting with him on the phone. "Colleague," he replied. The corners of Willow's mouth curled up. "It looks like I'm right. How could an insensitive guy like him possibly have a girlfriend?" Huh. She felt delighted and, with her chin resting on her hand, she stared at the man. As she continued to gaze, a message notification interrupted her. She couldn't help but glance at the message. "Stop staring at me." A blush crept up on Willow's cheeks. Does he think I'm infatuated with him? Is it a crime to look at you? Indeed, she felt a bit indignant. This man never held back on embarrassing her. "No more looking," he commanded. Because his target was still present, Jasper couldn't stay here for too long, nor could he let the target know that he knew Willow. "Leave the cafe quickly and return to your room. Don't come out unless necessary," he warned. Upon reading this warning, Willow retorted, "Can we stay in touch anytime?" Even if they couldn't meet, they could still chat through messages. "Yes." He gave a short answer. All he wanted at this moment was for her to leave as soon as possible. A smile appeared on the corners of Willow's lips when she saw the message. Soon, Jasper urged her, "Hurry up and go back to your room." It was only then that Willow got up and left, unaware that her departure was being observed by two men whose eyes were fixed on her like those of predators. Jasper didn't notice that as he had his back turned to them, but after Willow left, he pretended to answer a phone call and left as well. Back in her room, Willow couldn't help but lie on the bed with a happy expression as she hugged her phone. She could finally stay in touch with him.
Thank you for listening. If you have enjoyed this story, please like and share so others can see it too. Also hit the subscription button and notification bell so you can be notified on our next release. Thank you for your support. God bless you.